Welcome back to the channel, you guys. As you can see by the title of this video, today we are going to be getting into my thoughts on Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Yes, so Sinners is probably like the biggest film of the year so far. Just in terms of like conversation, definitely in terms of conversation. I don't think there's been a film that's been talked about as much as Sinners this year yet. You know, Oscar season is starting up, all the festivals are currently happening, so then more and more of the films that are going to be in contention for Best Picture are going to be released, and then the conversation is going to start about them. So we'll see how it fares, but also like Sinners came out in what, March? So it's been like about 7 months of conversation. I don't think these other films that are coming out will have that much time to have a conversation around them, but who knows? Maybe they will. Yeah, and so we'll see what happens when it comes to award season with Sinners. We can talk about that later in the video. But for now, I want to get into the film. We can talk about Ryan Coogler first, and then we can go into how I felt about the film itself, right? So let's do that. So Ryan Coogler directed Sinners, he produced Sinners, and he wrote Sinners, which I think is great. I think Ryan Coogler, when he's at the helm of a film, it's always going to turn out masterful. It's always going to turn out at least really, really good. When I think about Ryan Coogler and my relationship to Ryan Coogler, the first time I became aware of Ryan Coogler was 2013 when Fruitvale Station was released, right? And if we circle back to 2013, I don't know if you know, but the conversation in society and the conversation in like the Black community in the year of 2013 was very centered on, you know, young Black men and how they are policed in America, and police brutality in total. And then Fruitvale Station drops in 2013. And around this time, we're dealing with Trayvon Martin's murder case. And the verdict, I believe, came out before Fruitvale Station came out. Correct me if I'm wrong. But around that time, if you're a young Black boy, you totally were thinking about stories about police brutality. You were thinking about stories about violence against Black bodies, X, Y, and Z, right? And so when Fruitvale Station came out, and Fruitvale Station is a story depicting the last few days of Oscar Grant, a young Black man in California who was brutally murdered by the police in public. And when you think about that, back then in the time, it hit so hard because that conversation was so heavy for everyone involved, i.e. Black people, i.e. Black men, right? And so, or just as I guess in a conversation of like America, like I feel like pre 2013, police brutality was not spoken about how it is post 2013, and I think it's because moments like this that occurred, right? You know, it's like right after Obama gets his second term, then we're dealing with like Trayvon Martin's murder, and then R.I.P. Trayvon Martin, and then we are getting all of these pieces of media that are now shining a light on the situation, an epidemic that's been occurring in America, obviously since, you know, the country was formed, but had been occurring without mass coverage for probably all of the 2000s. Like, honestly, like that whole decade, like there definitely were instances, but I was a literal child, so like I wasn't aware of them. But by the time it came around to Trayvon Martin's murder, I then became aware of conversations such as are depicted in Fruitvale Station. And so Fruitvale Station hit really hard. I immediately knew who Ryan Coogler was, and I was like, wow. I don't think I really like understood like film to the degree I do today, or even like a year or two after Fruitvale Station dropped when I watched Fruitvale Station. But I did know Ryan Coogler was the one who was the director of it, right? So then we skip forward 2 years, and Ryan Coogler comes out with Creed, right? And Creed is basically like a spin-off or like a reboot. I don't know. I would just say like continuation series, continuation film franchise for the Rocky storyline, right? I like Rocky films. I think 1 and 4 are my favorite. Creed is a continuation of the story established within Rocky, right? It's about Apollo Creed's child who is now becoming a professional boxer, starring Michael B. Jordan. And so this is where, like, obviously Michael B. Jordan starred as Oscar Grant in Fruitvale Station, but then now that Ryan Coogler is back with Michael B. Jordan, this is like a dynamic duo, right? You know, all renowned directors have their muse, right? The actor or actress who like they work with the most frequently because like they just pair well, and like the direction is taken properly and the performance is done exactly how the director wants it to be done. Think about Christopher Nolan and Why is it escaping me? Oh my gosh. Why is his name escaping me? Hold on. Um, let's see. Okay. Killian Murphy. Christopher Nolan and Killian Murphy, you think about Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone, etc. People like that, right? And so you have Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. And I loved Creed. I really did love Creed. I remember I had my mom drop me off at the theater to go see Creed. I went and saw it like on like it was like a rainy like Saturday, I think it was. And I remember I saw Creed in a really big theater, and I loved it. I thought Tessa Thompson and Michael B. Jordan were great in that film. I thought everybody was great. I thought Sylvester Stallone was great in that film. I thought the story was great. I thought it was a great continuation series. In the past decade, we've gotten a lot of bad reboots and a lot of continuation stories from previous IP, and I think that Creed was one of the best in the past like 15 years. So that was great. And so then we skip forward a few more years, and we haven't heard from Ryan Coogler really at this point. Like after Creed, it kind of like no conversation. A lot of stuff happened in 2016, a lot of 2017, but then we hear Black Panther is coming out, right? So Ryan Coogler is the creator at the front of Black Panther, the live action Black Panther film. I think Ryan Coogler brought the character of T'Challa to screen wonderfully, right? And I think there's a lot of conversation around that as well, because a lot of people feel like the depiction of T'Challa in Civil War is like way more serious in tone and way more preferential than the depiction of T'Challa in Black Panther. But I think both are great. I think both are great for different reasons. And I was very satisfied with Black Panther, right? And also like around the time Black Panther came out, the MCU was at its highest point. It was right before Infinity War. And I don't know if you know, but everybody knew that Endgame was coming after Infinity War. So everybody knew that like it had already been on the street. So like you have to go see Black Panther, then you have to go see Infinity War, then you're gonna go see Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then you're gonna go see Miss Marvel, and then you're gonna go see Endgame, I believe. And so everybody was already, that whole slate, by the time we get to January 2018, like everybody's like, we're already ready for Black Panther, like we're prepared. The trailers for Black Panther are so good, the soundtrack's so good, everything about Black Panther was just like on point. And even the film too, even though there are some people who are a little disappointed by it, I think the third act of Black Panther is a little bit like, lesser degree than the first two acts of that film, but I still love it regardless, right? And then you skip forward into the next decade, into the 2020s, and in 2022, we have the sequel to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, right? Which I liked. I thought it was a great follow-up to Black Panther, given what that story had to juggle with the death of Chadwick Boseman. Like, we are missing T'Challa. What are we gonna do now, right? And Marvel already cut that check, so the story has to go on. How are we gonna do that? I think it went well, and I'm really excited to see the third Black Panther film, right? And then you skip 3 more years ahead, and now we are at Sinners, right? And so then when I think back to like when I first thought about Sinners, it was last year, and I remember when Sinners trailer released, and so much juice. I think everybody was excited for Sinners. I think everybody was talking about it at least, right? Because that first trailer for Sinners was so good. Like it really like it gave you no inclination to what the story was about. And we just went into it kind of like blind. Like we went into like that rollout kind of blind. Like we didn't really know what it was. And then like I think a few months later, like it got leaked that it's a vampire story, right? And then that forced them to come forward and be like, it is a vampire story. And everybody's like, whoa, we're tackling vampirism? Wow, what is Ryan Coogler gonna do? He's already done like superhero stuff. He's already done boxer stuff. He's already done, realistic identity stories in the real world through Fruitvale Station. So like, what will like the vampire story that he's creating be consist of? Also, like in the trailer, like one of the most notable pieces of the initial trailer is Michael B. Jordan like shooting the machine gun. We know where now, but shooting the machine gun at the camera basically, and everybody be like, "Wow, like this might be Michael Jordan's like best role to date." Maybe we could talk about that. We'll talk about that after, like how I feel about Michael B. Jordan in the film, right? We can get into the cast. So yeah, that's my relationship with Ryan Coogler. I am very happy to have Ryan Coogler in Hollywood. I think in an era of Hollywood where like Black creators aren't really at the forefront of conversation anymore. I think in the 2010s, we had Black creators really like at the forefront of conversation in many instances. You have Ryan Coogler, you have Jordan Peele, you have Barry Jenkins, you have, Nia DaCosta came on the scene, I believe. And so, and many others, right? And so but I think now in the 2020s, like that conversation has really died down. Like it's really died down. I don't think Black creators are really at the forefront of any conversation in film right now, until Sinners, right? So then Sinners comes, and then it's like, wow, like this is the biggest movie of the year so far, and it happens at the top of the year. You know, it's the Everything Everywhere All at Once print. Like, you know, we're gonna like forget trying to do like award season, fall, winter release. We're gonna go ahead and put it at the top of the year, give people something to eat on while the spring is pulling in. I love that, and I think Ryan Coogler is very needed in the industry as well. I think Ryan Coogler has a passion for film that I really admire. When you think back to the Sinners promotion, when Ryan Coogler did that like explanation video for Kodak, in partnership with Kodak, I should say, for the film, I think it was like right after the film released, he put this out, right? But it was basically like, I felt like that video was like 14 or 15 minutes long, but I think that video was really like 5 minutes long. But the way he was talking made it feel like it was 14 to 15 minutes long, right? And so basically he did like a 15-minute long video, or 5, who knows? Y'all let me know in the comments, about like the film that was utilized for the film Sinners, right? And what type of film is utilized when you're creating a film as a director, and what type of film gives you different personas or different aspect ratios or different outcomes, you know, when you're recording. And I thought that was great. I think it's bringing the audience behind the camera. You know, we've been in front of the camera, like we've seen what's in front of the camera, but bringing us behind the camera and actually letting us into like the thought process when it comes to like the actual creation of what we saw, which was beautiful. I loved it. And I'm always going to be interested in Ryan Coogler. I don't think there'll ever be a moment where I'm not interested in anything Ryan Coogler is putting out. Right now, Ryan Coogler, there is a conversation around Ryan Coogler that gets kind of misconstrued. It's the same one with Jordan Peele, where like they may be a part of a film and people will just give them the full praise for a film or the full ownership of a film. Like there's been many films that Ryan Coogler and Jordan Peele have produced on, or may have aided to write on, or something like that, and then like having their names like in there somewhere, people just immediately like, oh, that's a Ryan Coogler film, oh, that's a Jordan Peele film. But I think that's dangerous to do, right? Because one, like when they're not at the forefront of a film and you give them the ownership of that film and the film's bad, like you're kind of like putting like stuff that they had no input on them. But then two, it's also like you're diminishing people like who actually gave the work to the film. You get what I'm saying? So I think people just need to be more careful about that, especially when it comes to Ryan Coogler. So let's get into like what I felt about Sinners in general. So just to give a quick background on Sinners. Sinners basically is a story about two twins, a set of twins, Smoke and Stack. I like to think of Smoke as like the older one. Like he just gives more mature. Like obviously Stack is like way less mature. So I always like feel like even though they are twins and they are played by the exact same person, that Smoke is like the older sibling. He just gives like more mature. He gives like, oh, I live life more, like I keep my little brother in check. But you know, maybe he was the first one. I think maybe in the film they did talk about like who came out first. Can't remember. But basically it follows Smoke and Stack as they have fled Chicago after they went to Chicago during the Great Migration from Mississippi Delta, where they were raised. They fled Mississippi Delta to go to Chicago because, you know, they wanted to be on bigger things. They wanted to get money. They wanted to live a high life, right? And they went to Chicago and got into some mob stuff, and then like ended up robbing the mob, I believe. And then they fled back down to the Mississippi Delta, right? With the money that they stole. Then to just like build something of their own, you know, last resort in my opinion, but they were gonna come down and they had the idea of making a juke joint, right? Or like a nightclub, I don't know the right term to use there. And then it's about the people who we met along the way, right? So like they first pick up their little cousin Sammy, Sammy Moore, I believe is his name, played by Miles Caden, I don't know. But, and then they take their little cousin Sammy with them to round up everybody else that they need to get to help them get the juke joint up and running within a day's time. Like they get there like one day, and then like the next night they need that to be up and running. So that morning of the night the juke joint is up and running, they're doing all of this with Sammy, right? Cool. It's like a day. It's like literally it's like a 24-hour period film, which I think is great because like they fit so much in there in 24 hours, and we're going to talk about that too. And then like basically there's terrors that they face throughout that day, right? And we'll get into those terrors and what the outcomes of those terrors. were for our characters. So my overall thoughts on Sinners, I thought Sinners was very refreshing as a film. I think Sinners is very educational. I think Sinners is a very beautiful film. I think Sinners is a well executed film when it comes to the parts that Ryan Coogler cared about the most. What do I mean about that? I think the biggest pitfall to Sinners is the vampirism. I think that there's so much that this film is juggling. This film is juggling so many things. This film is juggling vampirism. This film is juggling Southern storytelling. This film is juggling twin dynamics. This film is juggling racial dynamics. This film is juggling racism. This film is juggling Asian and Black American dynamics. This film is juggling, relationships in general. This film is juggling spirituality. This film is juggling so many things, right? And I think that a lot of those things Ryan Coogler felt were very, very important. I think he felt all of those things were very, very important. I just don't think he thought vampirism was as important as the other aspects to the story. We're gonna get into that. But first, let's just talk about what I liked the most, right? The first 2 acts of the film, I love. I love the first 2 acts of the film. The third act of the film, First 2 acts of the film, right? What do I love about the first 2 acts of the film? So I love how like I said, we're going on this journey of the people we met along the way. We're rounding up the gang, right? And I love that whole stretch. I love the whole stretch of Sammy's going with Stack to get Delta Slim and to get anybody else any other supplies that they need, and then Smoke is going into town to get aid from Grace and Bo for the promotional materials for the juke joint, as well as to go visit Annie, his previous lover, and ask her to assist him as well, right? And so I love everything that has to go on with this. Everything that has to go on with this is great. I love the conversations that Sammy has with Stack when they're in the car going through the cotton fields, which I thought was beautiful, right? It's so layered. I think the cinematography of this film is so layered. Shout out to the cinematographer. The cinematographer for this film is Autumn Duran Arcapa. I hope I said that right, but bravo to you. I think all of those panoramic views of the cotton fields or the sugarcane fields were so pretty, so pretty. And it was so layered because obviously the history and the symbolism of those, right? Our people were forced to do slave labor there. And then we're looking at it it's a great plain of, plant life, which it is, but it's just so layered when you're seeing something so beautiful and understanding the history behind it, right? And then you feel what Sammy is feeling when he's driving through the field with Stack, right? And I love the conversation that they have. It's very older brother, little brother, or very older cousin, little cousin dynamic. And the conversation is really nice, And then we get to the train station because I think that's where Stack was going to find Delta Slim. And we get introduced to Delta Slim, played by Delroy Lindo. And I love that as well. I think Delta Slim was a great character. I think Delroy Lindo gave a great performance. I think Delroy Lindo probably gave the second best performance in this film. I have to chew on that a little bit because I'm wondering where I want to sit Michael B. Jordan in terms of his performance within this film, right? Because Michael B. Jordan isn't the best actor, right? But he is good in this film. While we're at the train station, we run into the character of Mary, played by Haley Steinfeld, and then we also run into the character of Perline, played by Jamie Lawson. And then we get flipped over to Smoke, right? Smoke, who went into town to talk to Grace and Bo, who are the 2 Asian characters here in our story, who run a market department store in the town, and he needs to get promotional materials from them, right? I love that whole sequence when he goes and asks a little girl to watch his car for him, when he shoots the guy, when we just see how the whole town functions and how that Asian business is functioning in the Deep South. Jim Crow times, post-slavery times. Very, 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 very good food. Very good food. And then when we move on from that town and we go to Smoke linking up with Annie, his previous lover, and that whole sequence, I think the best part and Annie's played by Wumi Mosaku, who I think is wonderful. I think anything that Wumi Mosaku is in is great. Her roles always hit. I think she's just I think she's very intentional with the roles she takes, and I think she tries to make sure that they fit her. And I don't think a lot of actors and actresses really do that, but I think she does. Every time she's in a role, it feels like, okay, she wanted this role, right? And they're not bad. Like, I can't really think of a bad role she's been in. Maybe the show she's been in. Obviously, she was in Loki, and I don't find Loki very endearing of a series. I know a lot of people do, but she was in Loki, and she was fine in that too. And she's been in a few other things, which I love her in. Obviously, she was in Lovecraft Country, and I think her character's story in Lovecraft Country probably was the most interesting character in the series, in my opinion. I think the conversations surrounding her character are very true to today's conversation. So yeah, but to get back on track, when Smoke, Michael B. Jordan's character, goes to visit Annie, in the conversations they have, we see Annie. She's running like a holistic shop out in like, you know, outer skirts of town, and like we have those two little girls who like are coming there for their mother. And I think that scene really like hit for me. Like when you have these two little girls, they're like 5-ish, 6 years old, and they're coming to get the supplies from Annie's shop for their mother. And Annie's like, okay, make sure you go straight home, take this to your mother, X, Y, and Z. And it's showing how like they could just go straight home. It's showing like community. It's showing like how there was community even where like the population is low, or where you wouldn't expect there to be community within. There is community there. You have Smoke outside. He's looking at, they lost their child. They lost their daughter. Annie and Smoke did. And he's outside like at their daughter's grave, mourning her. But then obviously Annie comes outside and is like, you know, what the hell are you doing here? Like, don't act like you give a crap about us, please. X, Y, and Z. Then Smoke comes in the shop. They talk about stuff, spirituality, all this stuff, and then like they have sex, right? Which was hot. Like it was hot. It was hot. And at first I was like, ooh. And you know, I've seen Sinners 3 times. I saw Sinners 3 times. I saw Sinners the Thursday it came out. I saw Sinners the Friday it came out. And then I saw Sinners a week later with my friends, right? 3 times. So I remember the scenes, and like that was hot. That was hot. That was a lot of hot scene. I liked it. From there, we move on to the juke joint, right? But then I'm not gonna get there yet, because then that's when we get to the 3rd act. But everything that occurred in the first 2 acts, great. Loved it. Scrumptious. I'll eat on it forever. Love it. Some other aspects within that first 2 act stretch that I loved. I love the church life experience. I think it was really true. I don't like Sammy's dad. I think Sammy's dad can croak. But Sammy's dad is like an insert for like how every generation within the Black culture, there's always been a rejection of like Black music evolution. And so like here with Sammy, like it's the blues, right? But like back then in the 1930s, the blues is like hip hop music today. Like the elders not going for that. Like if we're not doing like spiritual hymns, like we're not going for that. But Sammy wants to do the blues, and his dad's like, you need to just like be a family man. You need to work on this land, and you need to go to church, and you need to learn your sermons, and you need to become a preacher after I die. Because he's the oldest, I think, of like out of the 8 of his siblings, right? Because we saw that scene as well. But yeah, hated Sammy's dad, but I understood. I love the depiction of his life on the land, and I love how like it was way more like overcast. Like whenever we were on like the land that Sammy's from, it was more overcast. And like I think that was intentional. It was way less saturated than like other points in the film. So I think that was intentional because of like the energy that's like in that space for Sammy is very dull. He feels like it's dull. It's a dullness, and it's a dull environment for him. And he wants something way more flashier, right? And so that's why, you know, going off with Stack and Smoke for the juke joint is way more inspiring to him than staying at home and doing whatever his parents want him to do. Love that. Then we have the spirituality aspects. So I do like this. I halfway don't like the spirituality aspects of this film, but I think the pieces of the spirituality that I do like within this film are the pieces where Annie and Smoke are conversing with each other at Annie's shop. I think that all the storytelling around Annie's spirituality, when it comes to like her African spirituality and her Black Southern spirituality, I think that was done very delicately, and I think that was done properly. Obviously I haven't done all my research on it to know like what's accurate and what isn't, but I just felt that. Like I felt like Ryan Coogler handled that very, 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 very carefully. And I think a lot of people have said so as well. So I believe that that's true. We can get into the racial dynamics as well. So I think the racial dynamics were handled well. I think there's a lot of conversations between the characters, specifically the characters of Mary and Stack, right? Mary, played by Haley Steinfeld, she is what some people would call an octoroon. And so that's like a phrase for like people who are like just like an eighth, like black, right? She has like a black grandfather or something like that. And so like, you know, in the South back then, like it didn't really matter. It was a one drop rule. Like, oh, you got some black in you, like but it's about like how like she felt more attached to the black people around her. She was very attached to Stack when they were younger. She was very attached to Smoke when they were younger, Annie when they were younger, right? She wanted to be around them. She wanted to be a part of the black community at the time. But then as time went on, obviously the racial lines had to become thicker. And so that became a problem with her and Stack's relationship, where she had to make a decision on what side of the fence she wanted to sit on, right? Do you want to go on this white side where you can go because she's obviously a white woman, but back then, like, she's definitely white passing. Or do you want to like abandon like your entire community, your parents, your family, your white community to come and like pursue love with Stack, right? And then like it talks about like how Stack felt about that, how he was insecure about that, how he felt like he wasn't worth that. He wasn't worth her giving up her whole life for X, Y, and Z, right? We get to racism too. Obviously, racism is like, you know, it's the South in the 1930s. Like racism is like the foundation of the like culture that's happening there. So like I think that all that was handled well. I think that was handled really well. I think it made me more intrigued about that time period. I don't really think about like that 1930 to like 1950 time period. Not really. Usually when we think about like, you know, the 1900s and black people, we usually think about either like what they were doing during the Reconstruction period, or then we think about what they were doing during the World War or World War II, like how they were impacted by the wars, or like Vietnam or like Korea, whatever. And then, or we think about like the 60s, right? Because so much happened with like the civil rights movement in the 60s, right? And then post the 60s, we think about like culture, like, right? We think about disco, we think about hip hop, we think about, you know, R&B, we think about all this other stuff. But like the 30s to like the 50s, like that 2 decade period, like we don't really think about. And I think this film hitting on that as a period piece was very special. Like we don't see these stories. And like when we don't see certain stories, it's so good when somebody wants to break that mold, wants to break that web, and like, you know, create a new string for people to pull on. And I love that. And then the community in general. I think this film like just loves community. I think the dynamics between all the characters, we see the dynamics between all of the characters in this film. We know how every character feels about the other character. You know how Annie feels about Stack. You know how Annie feels about Smoke. You know how Annie feels about Sammy. You know how Annie feels about Mary. You know how Annie feels about Cornbread. You know how Annie feels about everyone. And that goes for everybody else. You know how Sammy feels about everybody else. You know how Stack feels about everybody else. You know how Smoke feels about everybody else. You know how Mary feels about everybody else. You know how Cornbread feels about everybody else. There was no stone left unturned when it came to the interconnectivity of the characters in this story until we get to Remick, right? And that brings us to the worst parts of the film, in my opinion, right? I think the worst part of this film is the vampirism. When I think about Sinners as a vampire movie, where would I sit Sinners as a vampire movie? Based on what I've seen after my 3 viewings of the film in the theaters, where would I sit Sinners in terms of all-time vampire films? Not high. I wouldn't sit Sinners high. Why? Because I think when you're depicting vampirism in any way, you need to be very committed to making sure that vampirism is understood and told. And I just don't think that's what Ryan Coogler was focused on here. Let's get into the character of Remick, played by none other than himself, Mr. Jack O'Connell. Yes, Jack O'Connell is having like a good year, right? He was in 28 Years Later, and he's about to be in the sequel next year, and then now he is in Sinners. So he's in 2 of the biggest films of the year, right? Because I consider 28 Years Later one of the best and biggest films of the year. So for him to be in both, great for him. The vampirism in this film is just not there. Like, it's just not there. It's there, but you don't feel it. It's there, but like it has no actual like depth in this story. And like, let's just run through all the issues I had with the vampirism in this film. Okay, for starters, the film has an opening scene of lore building, right? Where we open the film to Annie giving us 2-3 minutes of lore about that certain cultures throughout time, they have utilized music or had people in their communities who can utilize music to pierce the veil between supernatural and natural worlds, right? For whatever benefit and gain that their people need it for, right? And then also that utilization of music and that power that those certain people in said communities have attracts dark entities, right? Which is great. When I first saw that, I was like, oh, we're cooking. That was the first scene. I was like, oh, we're cooking. Like, we're about to see like some generational vampire storytelling. But no, that's not what we saw. That's not what we saw. That's not what we got at all. So then basically all that lore that was stated in that opening scene is just not called back to. It's not called back to. We can just go ahead and, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. The next thing is the Native Americans, right? So we have the scene, Remic's introductory scene, where Remick jumps out of nowhere onto the view of the camera, right? And I love this scene. I think this scene is like a great, like, I love that like little hop down, like that he's doing while he's burning, right? So Remick is burning, I assume, from the sun. Who knows? We don't know. We don't get explanation of this. The sun is going down. The sun is still out. You can like clearly see everything around what's happening. Like the sun's out. And then Remick is running away from the Native Americans, right? The Native Americans, they are coming to murder him. And who knows if like that was because they had like some type of liquid or ointment or some type of potion or remedy that could burn him, or if it was just the sun. But the question is like, if it was the sun and the sun is going down, that means they've been chasing Remick all day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or like, was that like immediately, like right after like they busted wherever he was down? But like even then, it's like he was burning. The sun was touching him. He was out in the sunlight, just as much as he was in the third act. So we're gonna get it back. We're gonna circle back around to that though. So that scene kind of pissed me off because it's like, okay, we just like, the Native Americans come to the clan people's house that Remick is hiding in, and they're like, oh my gosh, you have a bad entity in your home. You need to let us know. We're going to kill him if you let us know and free you. Otherwise, you're going to die. And they're racist, so they're like, oh, y'all need to get off our land, right? Cool. The Native Americans leave, never to be seen again. Don't understand that. I don't understand that. You have them being basically like the spear, like they're spearheading the lore surrounding like how to defeat vampires, and they're not ever spoken about or talked to again. I do believe that there was a world where he fit in a Native American character into the story somehow. Like there could have definitely been a Native American character at the juke joint that night. Like there was a way for Ryan Coogler to have fit that in. I just don't think he found that important. I think he found it as a cute detail, but it wasn't like important to the story, right? But I found it important to the story. When we're talking about a vampire story, is it important to a story about Southern storytelling? No. Is it important to a story about twins? No. Is it important to a story about a young black boy in the deep South trying to find his way through his creativism? No. But when we're talking about a vampiric story, it is important. We have to hit all points when it comes to the vampire, the leading character, the leading antagonist of the vampirism of the story. Remick turning the clan members. Remick comes into the house and then like, we don't even see him like bite the man, right? Because the woman's dealing with the Native Americans at the door. Why is Remick turning the clan members not like the predication for the lore in regards to like how turning someone actually is enacted, right? Because throughout the film we get no lore in regards to like what actually has to occur for you to change someone into a vampire. We do get like Mary having the bite mark on her, but other than that it's like I think that the lore surrounding like how or what vampires are is not clear. It's not stated to us properly here at all. We go back and forth between like what the vampires actually are and like what the lore surrounding them actually is. And Remick turning the clan members, them being here throughout the entire film, right? They are supposed to be symbolic of Remick turning someone into a vampire means that they're of Remick, right? They do what Remick says. They feel what Remick feels. They understand Remick's emotions. They share Remick's emotions. They share Remick's memories, right? They share his intentions. That's why they're following him around town to get to the juke joint, right? Cool, but then like that gets thrown out the window when we get to like people like Mary and Stack who are turning to vampires and they have individuality, right? And some people will say, oh, well, Mary and Stack, like seeing Annie die made them snap back into like their own personhood. I'm like, okay, well, like everybody else who Remick turned that night, who was at the juke joint, saw one of their loved ones die. They knew the people at the juke joint who died. So like, why didn't that snap them into their own individuality? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not clear. It's not stated. You know, we can go based off assumptions, but like at the end of the day, I don't want to go based off assumptions with the vampirism. I want to know the lore of the vampirism. I want to fiend for the lore of the vampirism. I want to understand it. I want to abide by it. That's what's so great about vampire storytelling, right? It's because like there's rules you have to abide by. You can't come out during the sun. You can't get into somewhere without an invitation. You know, you can only be outside at night. You can only drink blood, or you know the dichotomy of like, do I drink human blood or do I drink animal blood, and X, Y, and Z, all the things that come about that, right? How do we kill a vampire? All of that stuff. But this film like doesn't care for any of that, right? And then like we get to the part where like people are like, okay, Annie knows about vampires, right? That was just thrown in there. That was thrown in there. Ryan Coogler was like, okay, we're in the third act. We need action to start happening. Let's just have Annie just know everything about vampires off rip. She's like, vampire. Oh, let's get the garlic, right? Oh, and then we get to the garlic scene, right? So the garlic scene pissed me off. Why did the garlic scene piss me off? Well, we're doing the garlic scene, and he's like, oh, they're vampires, so we need to test and see who else in here is a vampire, because, you know, Stack just ran out, and we didn't think he was a vampire, but he's a vampire, right? Because he got turned by Mary, X, Y, and Z. So they go around with a jar of fermented or pickled garlic, right? And they're like, everybody has to eat a clove of garlic. That way, like, if you can swallow the garlic, you're not a vampire because it would kill you, right? Cool. We're doing that. Everybody goes around. We get to Pearline, right? Pearline, who I was under the presumption that it was going to be revealed through this scene that Pearline was Remick's wife. That Pearline was in fact Remick's wife. Why would I think that? Because when Pearline gets introduced to us, she's introduced as, I'm away from my husband. Oh, my husband wouldn't like that. Oh, my husband. The husband who we never see, right? So I'm like, okay, so like when is her husband gonna come to play? Is he gonna come to the juke joint and like bust in on her and Sammy having sex? Is that what's gonna happen? Oh no, that didn't happen. So like, when is the husband gonna come to play? Because we keep mentioning the husband. He doesn't come into play, right? But I thought that he was going to come into play. I thought the husband here was going to be Remick. I thought that was going to be such a great twist that like this whole plot was, this was a scheme set up by Ty. Like, I thought we were going to get like a whole plot where Pearline is Remick's wife, and this was all set up. Like, they had pre-planned this whole thing to get to Sammy, right? That would make sense because Pearline like preyed on Sammy in a sense. Like, he is a child, even though I know back then like adults and children used to mess around but like and get married, but it's just like, he's a child. Like, what are you doing with this boy? You literally like don't know him. Like, you got the train, saw him, like girl, what are you doing? You have a whole husband. Go back to your husband. It's nighttime. She has a husband and it is nighttime back in the 1930s. Like, what? Like, okay. So then I'm like, okay, I'm thinking like she's gonna do the clove. She's refusing it. So I'm like, oh, she's gonna drink it, or she's gonna reveal that she's Remick's wife, so she's a vampire, and that this was all, you know, a part of the plan. Like, and it would have worked so well if they went that way with it, because it would have made sense why like Pearline got up and performed as well. Like, after she had already been intimate with Sammy, like she's trying to get Sammy's ability to pierce that veil for Remick potentially, right? And so then she gets on that stage and tries to perform, trying to pierce it herself. Maybe she learned, maybe she took it from Sammy, who knows, right? There's so much great vampiric storytelling there, but like they didn't go that route, because like, what is another like common trope with vampires? The vampire's wife, right? That would have been such a good plot twist, especially because you wouldn't have been expected a black woman to have been connected to Remick, right? Because none of the black people have any understanding of the vampirism in the story, i.e. Remick. So when that wasn't where we were going, I was just pissed off. And then Pearline gets killed off as well. I was pissed off. I'm like, okay, everybody. Well, she don't get killed off. She gets turned into a vampire, but that pissed me off even more. Because I know Ryan Coogler saw that there. I know he saw that there, but he just did not have enough care for it. And you know, he's the creator of the film. That's up to him. But I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. The drooling, like, what's with the drooling? Like there's so much drooling. And I get it, like the drooling served its purpose during the sex scene between Mary and Stack, like because like she like spit in his mouth. But that was also nasty. Like that's nasty. Like if you watched this movie and saw that scene and didn't be like, ugh, like that's not no regular like little like, you know, swapping spit. Like that was like you're like putting your whole DNA into my like mouth right now, and like not in a good way, like not in a good way. It was in a horrible, like whoa, like Stack, you are on some freaky stuff, Stack. Like what were you doing in Chicago? Oh my gosh, the Ireland of it all, the Ireland of it all. Let's get into why like Remick was Irish. Like I get it. Like Ryan Coogler has said, like he's just like very fond of like the Irish history and how that compares to like Black history and things like that, X, Y, and Z. It means nothing to me when it comes to the vampiric storytelling here. And you're like, why does that have to matter to the vampiric storytelling? Well, Remick is a vampire. Remick is from the 1300s and the 1400s. He's about 400 to 500 years old. He said in his final monologue to Sammy that, you know, he's faced like, you know, eradication from the Christians or like oppression from the Christians, just like Black people have, and that like they'll never allow you to be great or whatever. I don't know, but it was just like, so like why, like this doesn't matter. Like this doesn't matter because you didn't explain why that matters. Also, like why is he trying to kill Sammy then? If his goal is to, you know, get retribution from like the Christians and what they did to the Irish, why is he trying to kill the Black people? Like what? Like why is he trying to kill the Black people? That doesn't make sense. Why is he threatening to kill the entire town of Black people and Asian people? That doesn't make sense. If he's trying to get, you know, retribution and vindication against the Christian whites, that doesn't make sense. But the film doesn't care about that, and neither does the audience, because the audience like just took that and was like, well, obviously, like he's from Ireland and X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I get the basis and the premise, but it doesn't make sense for the story. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't pay off. It doesn't pay off at all. So that pissed me off. Then we get to sun as a weakness as well. Like Remy dies by the sun. Like he dies by the sun, and like I'm kind of confused. Like I'm kind of confused because it seems like they don't have super speed. It seems like these vampires don't have like super speed. Like they can fly. They have immense strength. They're durable. They're impenetrable. But like they don't have speed, right? And I'm like, why didn't Remick just run away from the sun? Because at the beginning of the film, he's running away from the sun, or running away from the Native Americans, right? Is Remick like so old that like the sun doesn't penetrate him as bad as it does other vampires? But that doesn't make sense because he's like right in the sun. Like the sunlight that's out when he gets burnt up is the same amount of sunlight that's out when he gets introduced into the film. So like, what are we doing here? And then also that ties back into the idea of like what the vampire lore is surrounding like a vampire and their maker, because Remick has turned all these people into vampires, right? He's turned all these people into vampires. They have adopted his identity. They were out there doing Irish ceremonies together in the name of Remick. And like they're now trying to kill these people in the name of Remick, right? And then like they just stand there and get burnt up with him as he does. But then like Mary and Stack get to run away because what? Like people they knew and loved like died. People they knew and loved died, so they get to run away. I mean, like, so many people that Perlene knew and loved died. Does she get to be freed from her vampirism? No, right? The film doesn't really care about that. So there's just so many things about the vampire aspect of this film that I felt like just weren't given enough importance and attention, right? And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, fine, because the first two acts are great. The vampiric stories, the non-vampiric stories are great here, but the vampiric story is not great here. When I think about vampire storytelling and I think about all the films that depicted vampirism, Sinners is not going to be high on the list for me. It's not going to be high on the list. We're talking about vampire movies, because when we talk about Sinners, we're going to be talking about vampire movies. When people talk about vampire movies, they're going to mention Sinners, and it's not high on the list of executing vampirism within film. It's just not. It's great at other things, but it's not great at that. And that kind of like really, really like dampened the film for me. Like it really dampened the film for me because vampirism is so straightforward in 2025. Like it would have taken 3 minutes to clear all of this up, and then we wouldn't have to worry about any of it. But like he just didn't care. He didn't care, and neither did anybody else who was a part of the film. And to me, it's just like, why? Like, why do we not care about like the premise of the film, vampires? Why did we not care about that? Okay. Moving on. So then we get past like the vampire stuff. What else did I have an issue with within this film? The final stretch. The final 30 minutes of this film, which start after Rick's dead, and then like, you know, everybody else is dead, except Stack and Mary, which we'll get to in a second. But everybody except Sammy's dead, right? And Smoke is now at the juke joint when the clan pull up to murder all of them. The clan pulls up to murder all of them in broad daylight, which is not, you know, above the clan, but it's like, okay, why didn't they just come murder them that night at the juke joint when everyone was there? Why would the clan have believed that they would have been there in the daytime that day? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay. So then the clan comes, and then we give Michael B. Jordan this whole action scene sequence of him like just blasting away like the clan members in various ways. You know, grenades, AKs, machine guns, cars exploding, cool, all that stuff. Cool, you know, cool, fun, ha ha ha. And then we do this thing where like Annie comes back. She's coming through the veil of like spirituality, and she's like, you know, Smoke, come ahead and come with us. Like, don't stay in the world. Come with us and our dead daughter. And you know, be in peace with us. Cool, whatever. I was sitting there like, what is this? Like, this is a different movie than we were just watching. Like, this is a whole different movie than we were just watching, and that pissed me off. It did piss me off. I'm sorry. Yeah, and then that's the end of Smoke. So that's the end of Smoke. And then we go to Sammy, and Sammy goes back to the church, and we come back. We return back to the initial scene where Sammy was at the beginning of the film before we did the flashback. And he's bloody, and like he comes to the altar where his father, the preacher, is, and you know, they're like, okay, we're gonna help him. Right, then the film ends. Cool. The film ends, and then we have two in-credit scenes. We have a mid-credit scene and we have an end-credit scene, right? The mid-credit scene is when we skip to the future. We skip to like the 80s or the 90s. The 90s maybe. And we are with Sammy. He's an old man. He's like a legend. He's like a legendary blues player. And guess who walks through the door? Stack and Mary, right? And they're in their whole like 90s hip-hop get-up, right? And then like they're talking to him like, and it was just, this scene was just so odd to me. This scene was so odd to me. Like, I know people love this scene, and I was looking at it like every single time I watched this scene, I watched it 3 different times in the theaters. I was like, this is odd. Like, I get it, it's an homage scene because Ryan Coogler is paying homage to that, you know, famous like blues artist whose name is escaping me right now. Apologies to him. But I get it. Like, that was there for that. You wanted to make like sentimental value out of the film like one last time, which I didn't really understand. Like, we didn't really need that. That could have been like a deleted scene on like the 4K like Criterion Collection DVD. But then like you have Sammy sitting here with like Mary and Stack and being like, that was the best day of my life, which I assume is because like that was the first day he got to be a performer. But like everybody he knew died. And he literally ended that day going back to his family like in tears. So I'm just like, that was the best day of your life? You had fun that day? Why? Because you lost your virginity that day? Like, I'm like, what about this was like the best day of your life? Like, I don't see the best day of your life in that 24-hour period. But okay, like, you know, it seems like you are way more accomplished now. So I'm like, how was that the best day of your life? Okay. And then you have Stack here like, oh my gosh, like, that was the last day I got to see the sun, the last day I got to see my brother, X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, okay. It's just like, okay. That was already done to us, and then you bring him back and you explain like, oh, he actually like let him go. Like, Smoke actually let him go, and like he ran away like to be free. But it's just like, why? Like, why do we do that? Like, why do we do that? I'm confused. Like, why do we do that? We could have had that homage scene without bringing back Stack and Mary. And then like they sit there and listen to him play music. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? I just did not find that scene like necessary. I didn't find it commendable. I didn't find it like intriguing. I didn't find any value in that scene. So like that kind of pissed me off. I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but that pissed me off. The actual end credit scene is Sammy like back in the 1930s playing his song. And I get that was a moment to give Miles Cadden his like moment, right? Give his moment like in the spotlight because he is an artist, right? That's what Miles Cadden is. He's an artist. He's a musician, and like Ryan Coogler asked him to come on this film. This is his first acting role ever, which he did great in. So it's like I get it. He wanted to give him a spotlight. That makes sense. Cool. And it was quick. It was like a cute like little 30 seconds. It was a cute like 20 seconds. So that was cute. Let's get into some technical things. I think the production design was great here. The production design was done by Hannah Beechler. I think the set design was great here, as I stated before, done by Monique Champagne. I think the costume design here by Ruthie Carter was beautiful, was magnificent, actually. I think the costume design was really, 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 really superb. And I think that they're going to get all the Oscar nominations in regards to these technical categories, and I think that's deserved. I think they deserve to get as many Oscar nominations as possible. What else I think is great? Oh, speaking of Oscars, I think like the score, like I think Ludwig Göransson, like as the composer of the score, like I think he's gonna get nominated. I think the score was really, really, really great here. The best part about the score to me was that scene where Remick turns the clan members into vampires, because like that transition into the moon, that score like stretch right there from that scene all the way down was so great for me. So I love that. So how would I rank this film? Overall, like on a good day, I would give this film a 4 out of 5. I would give this film a 4 out of 5 on a good day, right? Anybody giving this film a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10, I'm not gonna argue with you. I see immense value in this film, so I'm not gonna argue with anybody who gives it high praise, right? It's not the best film ever, but it is a really great film, especially in the context of 2025, right? So I would give it a 4 out of 5. Anybody who would give it higher, cool, love that. On a bad day, I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5, right? It has a lot of things that just don't sit well with me. It has great things. Majority of the things about it I like, but the minor stuff that I don't like, they are very important. Like, it's a vampire story. Your vampire storytelling is not hitting here. And so I'm gonna have to deduct points. I'm gonna have to deduct points. I'm sorry. Ryan Coogler will live, like, from my little opinion. Those are my thoughts on Sinners, y'all. Would I rewatch Sinners? I mean, I would rewatch Sinners. I mean, I've already seen it 3 times. I would rewatch it with anybody who wants to rewatch it. I'll show it to anybody. I think I'm gonna buy it. I'm definitely gonna buy it. I think I'll buy. I have all of Ryan Coogler's films, physical copies of all of Ryan Coogler's films so far. But I think I will definitely be getting Sinners as well. What did I think about the cast? So let's just go through the cast really quick, and I'll give you my thoughts on the cast. Michael B. Jordan as Smoking Stack. I thought Michael B. Jordan did a fine job. Michael B. Jordan is not the best actor, right? He's not the best actor, but he is charismatic. He does have like that Tom Cruise to him, where like you just know that he's like good to be in front of the screen. Like he just feels like a movie star, but like he's not the best actor ever. And so he did great as Smoking Stack. I thought he did great. I think he did better as Smoke than he did as Stack. I think he had way more to work with as Smoke than he did as Stack, and I think he resonated with Smoke more, which is interesting because Smoke is the more mature character, and Michael B. Jordan is getting up there. He's pushing 40, so it's like, will 40-year-old Michael B. Jordan enter a role universe that's more mature? Will he start playing more fatherly roles? Will he start playing more roles that we can look at as, commendable? Who knows? Haley Steinfeld as Mary. I thought Haley Steinfeld did well here. I think Haley Steinfeld does well in any acting role that she has. I mean, her performance was great. Like, it wasn't anything to like brag about, but like it was solid. I liked it. Miles Cadden, great here. When we talk about like the supporting role nominations at the Oscars next year, do I think Miles Cadden will get a nomination? I would say so, but we have Delroy Lindo here as Delta Slim, and Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim is really, really, really excellent. And I think Delroy Lindo will get the supporting actor nom from this film. Then we go to Jack O'Connell. Jack O'Connell's not getting any awards for this performance. He was fine here. He was fine here. He was creepy. He played Remick well. I just think like the character of Remick was just not executed to the level it should have been. Why? Because I think we put vampirism on the back of Remick. If the vampire storytelling wasn't just on the back of Remick, this whole entire film, then I would feel a little bit better about Remick. But I think Remick was just A-okay as an antagonist, right? Wunmi Mosaku as Annie, loved it. As I said before, she's always great in anything that she's in. Jamie Lawson here as Perlene, I thought she was great. People have been saying that they want Jamie Lawson to be Storm in the MCU once they start transitioning over to the X-Men storytelling. I am on board. I'm on board. I would be so on board with that. But who knows what's going to happen with that. While we're talking about Perlene, though, I think Perlene was a great performance. I think she went about Perlene in the proper way. I love everything about Perlene, honestly. I kind of was sad when Perlene, like, met her end because it was like, dang, like, I mean, I know everybody died in this film. Everybody died in this film, but I was like, dang, like I kind of wanted Perlene to stay. Omar Miller as Cornbread. Omar Miller, he's been in so many things over the years. Like Omar Miller, I think I've seen Omar Miller on my screen since I can remember, honestly. There's been so many things that he's been in. I think he was great here as well. And I think the story about Omar Miller being in this film is so inspiring as well. He had saw Ryan Coogler, I believe, like many, many years ago at like some event. I can't remember what it was. He saw Ryan Coogler at some event and he was talking to Ryan Coogler, and Ryan Coogler was like, this was like a decade ago, I feel like. Ryan Coogler was very young. I think he had only had like Fruitvale Station out or something like that. And he was talking to Ryan Coogler, and Ryan Coogler was like, I'm gonna put you in one of my films. Like, I admire you as an actor. I'm gonna put you in one of my films. And I think Omar Miller like took that as like a, just like you're just saying stuff just to say stuff while we're in front of each other. But look, he put him in one of his films, and it was a great film. So that's like so inspiring because like it's just like a dream come true. So then you have Lee Jun Lee as Grace here, and I think she was great as well. People were mad at Grace for the decision to like invite everybody into the juke joint, but like she's trying to free her husband, one. So she's trying to kill him to free him because Remick has already taunted her with her husband's memories, right? And then two, like Remick was gonna get inside somehow. Like Remick was gonna kill them somehow. Like they weren't just not gonna get in. Like if Grace did not say come in, like she was just like, Grace was really just a real one. She's like, okay, like let's just face them head on because like they talking about they gonna kill my daughter too. Oh hell no, which I commend her for. Like okay, like me and my husband could die, but my daughter can't die. Everybody else in the town can't die. Like why are we not thinking about like the people? Hello people, let's think about the people in the community. So I don't put anything against her. I think the cast was great. I think casting was done very well. The casting director for Sinners was Francine Maisler. Shout out to her. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Ryan Coogler's Sinners. I hope I did not piss you off the way some things about this film pissed me off. But if I did, that's fine. I've run into people who like rave about this film. There's a lot of people who really love this film and think it's like pure excellence and masterpiece. I would allow that, I'll say that some days. And I'm very excited to see what Ryan Coogler does next in the next few years, whether that be Black Panther 3 or something else. Always going to be seated for Ryan Coogler. I'm excited for everybody else who was a part of this film, actually. Like, I think everybody who was a part of this film, I want to see them do more. Like, I'm excited for Jack O'Connell's next roles. I'm excited for Wunmi Mosaku's next role. I'm excited for Michael B. Jordan's next role. I'm excited for what Miles Cadden does. If they allow Miles Cadden to perform at the Oscars, like when I'm thinking about Oscar performances, like songs from the movies that are nominated for Best Picture, like if they allow Miles Cadden to perform at the Oscars, love it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get it going. Love that. I do have more videos coming on the way for you guys, so just be on the lookout for those. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you see my introduction video, that's like so funny for me to say, but I'm gonna get used to it. So like, comment, and subscribe, you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Great.